On News Radio 1029 KARN. I am your host, Brad Schmidt. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. 501 403 KARN is the phone number, 501 403 5276. If you want to join the conversation, be a part of the discussion, weigh in on any of the things we're talking about today. We are going to discuss quite a bit. There's a lot going on. Of course, there's been a lot of talk in the news today in multiple different news sites about the big win for the right wing or the far right or the conservative or whatever you want to call it over there in Europe. I guess in France they had the Conservative Party, or the right-leaning party, had the most successful election they've had in like 40 years or something like that, and other places in Europe as well, having very significant elections that were quite successful for those on the right or those that lean conservative. So we'll talk a little bit about that today, because there's a lot of misinformation going on about that. There's a lot of, I would argue, misreporting that is being done. And even some here in the States are saying, oh, yeah, no, this is good. It looks good. This means Trump's going to win in America, blah, blah, blah. And all of that may be true, but we need to be careful with that. This is the tactics of the media. They did this going all the way back to the Bush election and the whole hubbub with Bush v. Gore and the hanging chads in Florida and all that kind of stuff. That's exactly what probably and is believed by many political analysts to have caused the very, very close election in Florida, is that I believe it was NBC called the state of Florida very early for President Bush, even before the polls had closed, and therefore everybody decided, Bush already won. I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to worry about it. And of course, in the end, it turned out to be a lot closer than anybody expected. And so this is a tactic of the left. They will try to get you to be complacent and get you to think that, oh, I don't need to worry about voting. This is in the bag. We're going to win and all of that. And so be careful when you hear anybody, and I don't care if they're on the right or the left or anywhere in between, if they are telling you, this is great, Trump's got it in the bag, he's going to win, the Republicans are going to have the big red wave, and we're going to take over the House and the Senate and all of these things. Anytime you hear that, what that really should be is a huge red flag for you to go, I better get out and vote. I better get out and make sure that I'm voting, my wife is voting, my kids are voting, my family members, friends, cousins, uncles, brothers, you name it, everybody I know, I'm going to drive them to the polls if I have to. I'm going to, create my own temporary bus service and start picking people up and taking them to the poll. Anytime you hear that is, it should be a huge, huge red flag, a dog whistle, whatever analogy you want to use, to remind you that it is very, very important for you to get out and vote and not believe the hype, not buy into, oh, we've got this in the bag. Because come November this year, we're 4 months or 6 months away, 5 months away. We are going to be in the fight of our lives as far as elections go. The left is going to do everything they can to convince you that you've got it in the bag and you don't need to even worry about voting. Everything is good. And they're going to convince their own base as best they can that, this is the most important election of our time. And this is the single most important election in history. And they always are. They always are. So don't buy the lie. Just go out and do what you do every single year. Go out what you do or do what you do every single election and vote. Vote your conscience, vote your principles, vote whatever it is that you feel like is driving you to vote and vote. And honestly, as much as I want a particular outcome, I want liberty-minded candidates, no matter who they are or no matter what party they're from. I want people who are going to limit the size and scope of the federal government. I want to get people that are going to be focused on the rights of we the people at all costs And as much as I want candidates like that to get elected, you need to go out and vote for whoever you think is the best person to achieve the goals that you are trying to accomplish. Now, here's the thing. This is what I believe about America, and I've got some data to back this up. The average American leans conservative and leans liberty more so than anything the Democrats would have you believe. And so I really genuinely believe if the average American, if all of us get out and vote, if every single registered voter and eligible legal voter gets out and votes this fall, and the elections are fair and there's no ballot box stuffing and there's none of that, if that is the case, the conservative ideals, the liberty-minded ideals will win every time. Rush used to talk about this all the time. Rush, when he was on the air, when he was still live, Rush used to talk about that all the time. He said, when given the opportunity, people will almost always choose conservatism, will almost always choose liberty. And so we've got to get out the vote, if you will. These efforts to, like I said, whether it's borrowing your mom's minivan or whatever you got to do, and picking up your friends and driving them to the polls and putting out on Facebook that you're available and willing to drive people to the polls no matter who they are. I think if we do that, if we get enough people to vote, I think liberty wins every single time. 501-403-KRN is the phone number, 501-403-5276. So we'll talk about that. Another story that we're looking at over the weekend, the Republican Party had their convention here in the state of Arkansas, and they voted to close the Republican primaries. And we'll get into this. We'll dig a little bit deeper into it, but honestly, it's about time. This is the way they should all be. This is every primary, whether it's Republican, Democrat, whether it's Libertarian or Green Party or some other independent third party, whatever, they should be a closed primary. And it's really not a complicated thought process. And I've seen some folks on Twitter getting angry about this and getting all frustrated about this. And how dare the Republicans close their primaries, or they're trying to shut people out. No, they're not. They're not trying to shut people out. The Democrats should be claiming the same thing. The Libertarians, the Green Party, the rent is too damn high party. I don't care what party you're with, your primary should be closed. And the simplest example, or the simplest illustration I can give of this, the board of directors at Coca-Cola, the majority stockholders in Coca-Cola, when they are voting on corporate policy and corporate business, whether it's hiring a new CEO or whatever, when the board of directors and when the majority stakeholders of Coca-Cola get together, they're not allowed to vote on what Pepsi does as a corporation. The same is true of Ford and Chevrolet. The same is true of every single corporation in America. If you are a stockholder in that corporation, you get to vote in corporate business. If you are not a stockholder, you do not get to vote in their corporate business. Apple doesn't get a vote on what Samsung does with their phones. And on the list goes. You do not get to be involved in the business of an organization unless you are a member of said organization. This is not complicated. And that is the way it should be. The other thing we're going to talk about with this is more evidence that primaries in general should not be handled by the state. There is no reason, absolutely no reason whatsoever for the people of Arkansas to be paying for the balloting processes through our taxes to elect candidates for the Republican or the Democrat Party. There is no reason why we should be paying for that. If the Republicans want to elect a candidate for their races, if they want to choose French Hill or they want to choose Colonel Conrad Reynolds or whatever, that's up to the Republicans. And it should be on them to pay for it. If the Democrats want to choose Chris Jones or Contessa Hathaway for their governor's candidate, that is up to the Democrats, and they should be on the hook to pay for it. There is absolutely zero reason why we, the people of Arkansas, through our taxes, should ever pay for any of that. Do any of us have any idea how many millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars the Republican and the Democrat Party have? They don't need us to pay for it. But the system is so rigged in favor of the two-party system that they have convinced us that we should be paying for them to choose their candidates. And it is absolutely absurd. And for those of you who are listening from the legislature, you need to maybe start working on legislation for this. That the primaries will no longer be paid for by the candidates or by the people of Arkansas, but paid for by the parties who are choosing those candidates. There's more to that and a whole lot more to get to as we continue with the Schmidt Show next on News Radio 102.9 KRN.